All right, guys, welcome to the Hustle Cast. We got a special guest in here. Roger Kahler is, I call you my mentor, my business and life mentor, and he helped me get to where I'm at today. I think the exposure of what I've got to see working with him, and him just showing me a different way of living. Help the next step of getting to where I'm at today. So, Roger, welcome.
Thank you, Chant.
And so, let's get the audience, I guess, a perspective of who you are and how we met.
Okay, basically we had, starting out farming, always had a love for metals, so I started an ornamental iron and decorative metals business almost 60 years ago. And Chant and I met at a gathering of a mutual friend, and
it was. I was actually in a treatment center, you guys. I was just trying to find myself. I struggled with alcohol and drugs, and so Roger was at this picnic at the treatment center.
A treatment center picnic of a lady whose dad worked for us as a hired man many years before, and my wife and I were both impressed with Chant and Amy's infectious smile and outgoing personalities when we first met. I've always had an individual in a neighboring town to help install larger projects for just a day or so when I needed help. And we had a large project in Jackson, and after we had met the second time, I asked him if he would be interested in helping me, so he did. And from day one, I was so totally impressed with his ability to intensely listen and follow instruction, which he did very well. And one of the first things he did when we finished the project was thanking me for the opportunity to help me. So then I asked him if I could provide 4 or 6 hours at a time, would be he interested in coming to the shop, which is about 12 miles from Jackson. So that's how our business relationship started. He came out and was a tremendous employee of ours. We left him make mistakes, which is my theory. That's how we learn, is by making our own mistakes, not somebody else's.
So this was actually in 2004.
Okay,
2004
yes.
We met, and you guys, I came from a different way of life, living, and to be able to have the opportunity to work with Roger was a blessing in disguise, because I didn't know where my life was going to go at this point. And after Roger, after you asked me if I wanted to work with you or help out, I was already busy enough that, it was like, I was like, I'm just going to do it. I was going to do it. And I think that looking back, it's been 14 years. Yeah, about 14 years. And literally, it helped me along the way where it built me up. Instead, like, I didn't care about the money or anything. Like, the working was great, but it wasn't just that I was just working for money, because I knew that I needed to really learn something new. And I think you came into my life and Amy's life and Caroline as well, that you guys showed us.
My wife, yes.
Yeah. It's crazy how this all evolved.
We were just talking about it over lunch this noon, about when he, after he worked for us for over 5 years, you get to know someone quite well. And when he would come to work and be extra quiet, I knew he had something heavy on his mind. And that particular night, I asked him what was going on, and he said, well, I hate to leave you sit, but he wanted to start his own business. And I said, well, I hate to lose you, but don't let anybody rain on your parade. I said, if you got a dream, you go for it. And not everything's going to work as you hope, but that's how we learn. And so and then he said he wanted to start a landscaping business. And I said, well, when you really came alive for the day is when he and my wife was the 3rd or 4th generation gardener. So that's how, and she has a tremendous knowledge of plants and the shade and the sun and the varieties and adaptability. And so he and her eventually had a tremendous amount in common with their love for plants and their ability. And so it was really, it's been a great experience, and hopefully, and my brother and I were blessed in that fact that our dad gave us the opportunity to make mistakes. Never said "I told you so" when it didn't work, and that's how we learned.
So, what was neat was, Roger, remember the times that I would constantly ask you about tax? You remember that?
Right.
Like I'd always bring up tax. And the reason why I brought that, like I kept asking, I wanted to know more about business, right?
Right.
I wanted to know business. And you showed me like what happens in the side of the business and stuff here and there. But it was hard for me to grasp the part of, like, I was afraid to start my business because I was afraid I might not track one thing right, or, do things wrong in the, like, I was so worried about tax that it literally stopped me from starting a business. Like, I haven't even started a business and I'm worried about this tax stuff, right? So during those times, like, you would send me out to this church. What church is that right here?
Our Redeemer.
Yeah, our Redeemer
delivered
church.
a project for me. Yeah.
I remember when you gave me that stand, or what?
Some candle holders.
Yeah,
for
candle
the church.
holders for you go. Okay, Chant, can you take? It was a big task at that time. You go take this over to the church and deliver it. And for me, I don't like to talk to people and to even communicate to any. Like, I was very shy and I just didn't like people, and so you gave me that chance of just going and having that small responsibility. And from that point, it was like, hey, that wasn't so bad to go deliver that on my own without, I was like, anytime I was afraid of something, I wanted somebody next to me and to go with me. But then that opportunity came. I mean, it was big, you guys. It was big to me because I'd never done those things on my, what am I going to say to the person or whatever? Like, I had to figure these stuff out, but it was big.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't. Yeah. I guess I kind of remember you saying it after the fact. But then you remember the night you went to a Region 9 development meeting at Fairmont with me.
The entrepreneur, a bunch of entrepreneurs.
And my cousin in Fairmont is they run electronics business in Fairmont, Minnesota, and a very outgoing person. So one of the first ones we met coming in the door was my cousin and his wife, and they kind of took a Chant under their wing and made him, give him that comfort level that he needed with nothing but strangers at the place. And
right.
And
I remember exactly that night. It was cold and it was snowing.
Right.
And we were going. We made it there safe and made it back safe. But when I was so uncomfortable in my own skin when I was going with you, like everybody was wearing like suits. I just felt like I was less than. For some reason that night I felt, because that self-esteem the confidence wasn't there in me. What you did that night took me to a place where this is the possibility. These people, they had business, they had this, they had...
And they all started out...
Yes.
From base one in some manner.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is that you took me in there and showed me how to network.
Okay.
How to network. I didn't understand why. Like, I'm sitting there. Why are these people talking to each other? Why they're sharing each other's like dreams or goals?
Story.
Story. I didn't understand that. So then when I left, like, I felt like I was underdressed, but that's just from coming from where I came from.
And, we always, and clothing doesn't make the person.
Right.
I mean, and my wife and I are more attracted to someone that's dressed commonly and is on her own level, and there are a small percent that present themselves as somebody when they really aren't. Mm-hmm. They're have a false impression of themselves because of their status, and that is not desirable.
But that night was just, it was just neat to experience, because it's like that I think that night showed me entrepreneurship. Like I didn't understand what entrepreneurship or what an entrepreneur was until I walked into those rooms, and then there was a guy, I remember the locksmith guy, and then
Okay.
and then your cousins.
My cousin, yes.
Yeah, with the Kahler Electric and stuff. And they're just sharing each other's story. But then when we share the story, you never know who you're going to run into that can connect. That's
exactly right.
What you need.
Definitely, yes.
You know.
Yeah, and we all can, and there again, my brother and I were so blessed. Our dad always, told us to be observant of people around you, and every day should be a learning experience. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, maybe you're not paying attention.
Right.
So we've at the time we didn't think much of it, but as we got older, we realized how blessed that we were. And he also gave us that opportunity to make mistakes and learn by those mistakes, hopefully. And
the experience of working with you guys. Okay, it's done. The experience of working with you guys. I didn't, when I got there, I didn't understand either why somebody would pay me to pick apples, right? I remember going up on that.
I guess we did.
The Bobcat or your skid steer and stuff, whatever. We got up and I was picking apples. I'm like, who pays somebody to pick apples? and to garden, right? And to do metal work. I didn't understand these things, but then as the years went by, I was like, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing. You taught me the value of who I was and how important it was that I should be treated fairly.
Equally, yes.
Yeah, equally.
No, definitely, yeah. No, that everybody has a God-given talent, and you've got abilities I don't have. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I got a few abilities. We always told our children, if you avoid a challenge, it'll become easier and easier to avoid that challenge or a challenge. But if you prayerfully work your way through it, then you can look back and say, well, this is no different than the previous challenge that I had. And yes, there's going to be things that we tackle that you wonder why in the world you got involved in it, but it's a learning process, and very valuable lessons can be learned.
Right. And then I didn't know how to, when I went in, you guys working for Roger, I didn't even know how to run any tools. I mean, it's bad. I'm embarrassed to even share this, but the part is that I didn't know literally how to wrench or like use a power tool or anything.
Okay.
And I was scared of it, very scared of it. And I'm always thinking I'm going to make mistakes and stuff. But
well, and maybe I've always had a love for tools and a fascination for building. Our dad was probably one of the better livestock men in the country, but he was not mechanically minded. So if we break down, then it was my turn to shine a little bit, I guess, as a kid. Mm-hmm. And we had an older neighbor that also showed that confidence in a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy that I was when we worked together. He would ask me for advice or what, and he was several years my superior. Mm-hmm. And so it's, like I say, it was kind of a passed down learning experience that we had as growing up, my brother and I. And
okay, I went in there not knowing how to use tools, right? And not knowing how to weld.
Yeah.
And you let me weld. I don't know how good it was, but you let me weld. But like, if I would have never been exposed to any of those things, I wouldn't have learned how to weld. I wouldn't have learned how to use any tools. And I mean, still today, wrenching and stuff is not my strongest point. And we get that hired. Well, what we can fix, we'll fix, but we hire that out. But I know where my weak point and my strong points are today. And that if any of that stuff that I wasn't exposed to, I wouldn't have, the steps to get to where I'm at today wouldn't have never happened.
Well, growing up probably on a farm and as a farmer back in the 50s and 60s, you were almost looked down on by a percentage of neighbors as a farmer if you didn't do everything yourself, whether it was agronomy or maintain, veterinary work with your livestock or mechanic work. But as I got older, I started to recognize my strengths and my weaknesses. So then I was like Chant. I mean, then you realize you're farther ahead hiring someone who has expertise in an area that you don't, and concentrating your abilities on something that you really, first of all, enjoy, and secondly, is your strong suit.
And I can't forget the times that we have coffee. we have coffee break, and then we have sandwich and the nut bread.
Yeah, nut bread.
We go in, we'd have that, and I'm like, who takes time to do this thing? That's what I did not understand, Roger.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Like it's very when I wasn't exposed to those things growing up, it's like, why do you guys care so much? Well, why you guys take the time to do these things that I've never been exposed to? And then as I left the nest, you would say, leave the nest, I find myself doing the same thing that you guys has shown me.
Okay, that's great.
And that's, like try and treat everybody fair and value everybody's time. And like, I didn't understand those things,
And that's what I guess, and that we learned from my brother and I growing up too, that time spent with neighbors, like in the old threshing crew or silo filling crew, where you took a lunch break in the morning and visited, and same thing in the afternoon, and had a few laughs and expressed some concerns that you were having, and maybe some of the older fellows in the group had already experienced that and would give you good advice and give each other a rough time. And I mean, it was more of a lighthearted. It wasn't all about the work. The accomplishment was important, but not the most important thing that we dealt with. It was and we've lost a lot of that in our nation. It's today, in so many cases, it's production at all costs, whether it's health and people don't take the time to get to know each other. And I've always felt too, I guess one of the first things, I don't know if Chant remembers that, one of the first things I told anyone that worked for me in my small business was, I'm more interested in quality than quantity. The old saying, if you've got time to do it the second time, if you don't have time to do it the first time, you especially don't have time to do it over again. And I learned that from our youngest son. He said, how one person taking a shortcut can make things miserable for people down the road, and in a escalating fashion almost.
So then the landscaping, I don't know, I fell in love with landscaping and lawn care. And you guys had like boulders or rocks, I remember, out at your farm. And I would load it up in my little Volvo in the trunk.
I'd forgotten that.
In the trunk, so I could landscape our new home we just bought. Like, I finally was able, or Amy and I, we purchased our first home, and I thought we'd never be able to do those things. I thought we were going to be we wouldn't have a home. But working out there, I think it opened up my eyes to know that the opportunity is there. Like it's endless. And so we took the boulders home, and I just literally, Amy wouldn't see me inside the house. And I'd spend my days and nights when I'm not working with you or working at the other jobs, landscaping. And there wasn't enough daylight in the day to finish what I wanted out there. And then Caroline would send me plants. Caroline, when I was working out there, I'd get like trunk full of flowers or plants back home. And so I learned the names of the plants, how to plant them, where they take shade or they full sun, all of these things. and I didn't realize what I was learning out there was going to transpire into landscaping and lawn care. And so, I mean, I'm a guy who likes outside and like dirt, and working with you, you helped me the business side, the back end of going out there and getting it, talking to people, you know.
And something that, and from day one, I always appreciated with Chant, his honesty and his ability to say, why do you do that? Or what's this for? And we get into a rut or a habit of doing things a certain way, and we don't give it a second thought, maybe why we do it, but it's there again through experience. But I always appreciated how his willingness to ask questions, which is so important. And
it's just great. I mean, I can't believe it's already been 14 years.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Well, Chant, we got three biological sons, 2 adopted daughters, but my wife always said Chant's like one of our boys, so that we really thankful for the time that we've had experience with he and Amy both, and now the boys are growing up so fast, and it's been great.
It's the power of having a mentor or somebody besides somebody outside the family. It feels like I've got a chance to learn. Like, I don't know if it's easier to listen to somebody that's not family or what the deal.
Right.
I think it's just like growing up, I never had a father, you know, and all this stuff. All of these things were a void, right, in my life.
Right, yeah.
It was a void. But then when I got a chance to work with you guys, it's like that void was filled, was replaced with, okay, now I've got somebody who cares, somebody who's listening to my thoughts and my ideas and my dreams without telling me that's wrong, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't touch that fire, but you allowed me to make mistakes. And you guys played that part, I think a big part of that, where every day I went home, I was happy. I was. You can ask Amy. Fulfilled. Yeah. And Amy is like, "You're not tired?" No, I just came back from Rogers, and I'm like still wired, and so that's where that mentality of I'm always on the next. I'm always going and always like challenging myself to learn. You know, and
that's great, and regardless of our age.
Yeah.
I mean, we can always, and I've learned that well from you and from one of our, especially our youngest son, who's in does photography for hotels. That I have learned a great deal that you never take a shortcut. You don't leave the job. I mean, if it's bordering on midnight and you got 300 miles to drive to get back home, you take whatever time it takes to do it right.
Right.
And leave. You know, and even my railing business, there's been times when I make a mistake building a project, and then you stop and say, well, I just will cut it apart, do it right, and then you don't have to explain to anybody when you get there, well, that looks the way it does because, you know, the way you, because you made a mistake and didn't take the time to correct it.
And I don't know, I got a chance to learn so much out there about just life and business in general.
And there was a couple things that one business that you were thinking about entering into that I was uneasy with, and we talked about the positives and the negatives, and kind of left at that. And the next night he called and said, "I think that's something I better pass on." And now looking back to problems in society or in the industry with that very thing that the problems is causing. You know, you don't have to deal with.
Right. So the business was, you guys, I wanted to start a e-cigarette business where I would sell it, right? I had quit smoking, I had quit drinking, and as an entrepreneur, you're always coming up with ideas, and if there's ever a dull moment, there's always new business. so then the e-cigarette thing, it was booming, years ago? It just came out.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and it was booming, and I thought, man, this is my opportunity. I got the location, I got this, I got that. Maybe I should start selling it. And to me, I knew it didn't feel right, but I was like, I just got to run it by Roger, see what he says. And he didn't tell me to do it or don't do it. We just outweighed what the negative and the positive and stuff like that. And yeah, like you said, I just.
Well, that was then the next night you called and said,
Yeah.
he said, I've overcome an addiction, and he said, I don't, feel right getting someone else into
Yeah.
another type of an addiction, and that was, like hindsight. I was more afraid that he would, buy a package deal from somebody with a huge inventory, and
Yeah.
and they let you sit, and not thinking, and there myself too. I probably didn't think of the long term. At that point, it looked like a positive direction with the smoking industry, if there is any. But hindsight now, it is not.
No.
It's as addictive as tobacco itself. So.
Yeah. No, but all the ventures, I think, and I think what was neat was that I had a place where I could talk about business, because that's what I ate up was business. Like starting a business was what I always wanted to do, and I think working out there with you was, I got a chance to, not that it was work. You taught me how to work out there. You just left it. You said, Chant, do this, do that, and you left me. And I think the best thing is that you left me until I got frustrated on my own, so I would learn how to ask, because I would never ask back then. Now, when I'm stumped or when there's a problem, I pick up the phone right away and I ask somebody. Like, there's always somebody there that knows more than I do, but if we don't ask,
and that pertains to any of us.
Yeah. And if I don't ask, then I don't know. Then I just keep bumping my head and keep getting frustrated.
Well, and that backing up quite a few years, my wife grew up in a somewhat dysfunctional home, and she worked at a restaurant, and a couple came in and every day for lunch. And then one day this gentleman asked her if she was still in high school, if she ever would be interested in working for them. And they became such tremendous mentors to her. They gave her that opportunity to work and to learn, and left her. She'd go out bill collecting from these hard-nosed characters that they had a time getting, and she was probably 18 years old. And so then that was always of such great value. And we remained friends with these people until they both passed away in their 80s and their 90s. Okay. And so it was that thankfulness of someone trusting in her, and like I said, myself with some of the older neighbors that had a mechanical interest like I did, would ask me what I thought, how it should be done. Right. As a 15-year-old boy, it was a great, a great value. And I had an uncle that was so truly interested in what not only my brother and I, but then in our children when we were together, what they were doing and what their goals and so forth. And now today they're all in business for themselves, and they're great. Right. They often talk about that. Someone who took a true interest in what their dreams were.
Right. It's very important, isn't it? That I think no matter who we are, that we have to be willing to learn and maybe get out of our like the environment that I came from. I always talk about it. We were never exposed to business, because every time we trade a service for pay, you felt bad because you feel like you're taking their money, but in return you're doing a service. Like, I didn't understand that trade. I didn't understand, like, when I would go out and do. I remember my early stages of lawn care and landscaping. When I would go out and do bids, I'd cringe because like it almost feels like
feel guilty.
Yeah, you feel guilty.
Right. And I've been in the same.
Yeah, you feel guilty, and then it's like, but then I realized that when I'm charging the price in my early stages, I was charging for what I knew at that time, and then as I build, I got a little better. My knowledge grew a little bit, and I knew it's like I wouldn't be pricing what I price the projects and lawn care today, what I priced it at 9 years ago.
Right.
Because I didn't realize insurance, the gas. Like I didn't look at all my numbers and stuff, you know. And now I don't feel guilty. I mean, I lay it out. It's not just, like I know my price. Well, and the customers know my price.
Right. Okay. That's important.
Yeah.
And then your quality, too.
Yes.
I've been there too. When you almost feel guilty charging, but then a price for a project, but then when you look at the extra time that you may spend to do it right first time, provide quality and service, yes, you're going to lose a few bids because someone is looking at price only, but then they're not worth having as a customer. And everybody has to make a profit to keep the doors open. Right. That's just the long and short of it.
And when I started Scott, I rented that the skid loader. I don't know what was that.
A little case.
Little case, and it was tiny. I think it was like a 36
inch. Yeah, it would go through a 36-inch door. The fellow who farms our land had a little tiny case skid loader, and so he let Chant use it the one winter for you're moving snow.
Yeah, because I was saying I needed a skid. I was going to rent it, and then Scott let me borrow it, and he wasn't going to charge me. And I ran that thing, you guys. There's no heat, no cab, but we had snow removal places or accounts we had to do.
Right.
And so we rented that from Scott, or Scott didn't want me to pay for anything for it, but we rented it, and for 2 years we rented that thing.
I think so. Yeah.
And it was cold. Oh my God! But we got the job done, and we got paid. And then end of the season, I felt bad for having it for that long, two seasons, you guys. And then I said, Scott, you better come. I knew at that moment I had to figure something else out because I felt bad. Scott wasn't charging me. And then he came, and I said, I got to give you something, Scott. He goes, no, Chant, you don't need anything. I said, how about this? Your tires are bad from us running it. I go, I'll take it over to the tire shop, and we'll get you new tires if you don't want any money. And he said, that's a deal. And so we got him new tires, and I just felt bad not giving Scott anything because I've learned so much in between when I started my business that there are people that are willing to help for free, but I feel like now as a business owner I am responsible to repay back somehow.
And I mean that's again where he has farmed our land for 20 plus years, and just a very generous, a tremendous renter because he's so respectful of our. And we work back and forth for some things. I do some repair work for him, and he I think he comes out. I intentionally come out on the short end of the stick because he is so respectful of our place and a good, honest, hardworking man. And now his son and son-in-law are coming into the picture with him, and
no, he was a nice guy. I was like, who would do that? You know, who would lend me their skid loader? But,
and I'm sure he's so good-hearted. I'm sure that there's a few people take advantage of him, but he isn't one to. That's his. Yeah, any of us. I mean, you're going to get used once in a while, but then we learn that. Okay, that's their problem, not mine. You know.
I remember when I asked you for this. What was it? The hanging plant deal? Was it the
Shepherd's Hook?
Shepherd's Hook, right? And I said, I wanted Shepherd's Hook. I couldn't afford it. I mean, literally, I mean, what was it, $20-$30 or something like that?
But I suppose so.
And I didn't I felt so bad that I didn't even offer to pay you. Like, you gave it to me, but I didn't get the concept of, okay, Roger cut that metal, he painted it, he put his hard work into it, and I took it home, and then never paid for it. And then I paid you, and then I think later on, I cut you a check, I think for, whatever, $20-$30 just for that Shepherd's Hook. And it taught, like, those things I don't see until like years later when I have my own business.
Yeah, I totally forgot. Yeah, okay.
When I started my own business, and then I was like, I look back, I said, hey, I need to give Roger that money for that shepherd's hook. Like a person doesn't see that until you have your own business or doing what you do today.
And that was my intent,
You know,
just to give it to you. But I can see the other side. I've been in that position too, where you feel obligated to some extent. You know, when someone.
But it's just the stuff that you learn. You know, I mean that. I don't know. It was just it's an awesome experience. You know, you get to do those things, and everything that I've learned, and you guys showed me, like cutting the steel, cleaning the steel, to digging out plants, to picking up apples. You know, when it's time to harvest the apple.
That's all part of
But it was part of you. I never did any of those things. And then now I'm doing those things at my own house and wherever I need to. It's like it's normal. It's become normal, you know, to do those things. It's okay to pick up a shovel and dig. Like I thought, oh, you took me out, I remember in Fairmont, to that Ford dealership to do that railing, to touch up those railings.
Okay, I forgot, yeah.
And it was, here's my thought process on that when you stuck me out there to paint that, to touch up, and everybody's driving by. Like, even though I was getting paid to do that, I felt less than, just because I don't know what was going on in my mind then. Like, I felt like if I was doing that I'm no better than the person doing something else. But what it taught me was it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to paint, it's okay to do some work.
To sweep or to vacuum,
to sweep,
take
to
up.
vacuum, to clean the toilet,
Yeah.
you know, all of those things was okay. I don't know what I was thinking, but I felt so low that day, but I kept doing it. But the more I did it, the more I said, do I really care what people are thinking? I don't even know these people that are driving by. Why do I care what people think? Like, I don't know what it was that I was.
And that was part of the service on my, they had used salt remover on the ramp and probably hit the railing a few times with the shovel and started out. Yeah. The maintenance man wanted some paint to touch it up, and I said, hey, well, so then that's when and I never realized it at the time, but that's part of the service, going the extra mile, and then the customer worth maintaining is going to remember that, hey, that guy went out of his way to make something right or to help me out, and so most people remember that, and so it's good. It's the old saying: it's easier to keep a customer than to find a new one.
No, but
there's a few, and we've talked about that this noon. The longer you're in business, the more you can sense, especially in a custom type business, that there's people that you're better off not dealing with, because it's going to be a rough road to hoe and a never-ending problem, you know. And so to be honest with people and say, hey, you're going to have to find somebody else, because I can't, apparently my quality and my workmanship isn't up to your standards. You're going to have to find somebody else to misuse. And I mean, in a sense.
It's standing your grounds of, like, I've been through that too, where I've had to let go of customers because the price over quality, right? And you just can't do that, you know. And I feel like I remember when I started the lawn care and landscaping, there was jobs that I was unhappy doing because I knew there was no profit.
Right.
Like, by the time you start getting finished, and it's like, okay, I'm not gonna bid it like that anymore. And then say next time comes around, the same customer wants to say like another service done, and you give them the price, and then I learned from the first time, it's not your fault,
right?
But I've got a profit, and so they get upset, or or we just have to drop them because they just don't want.
Not putting anyone down who's not or in a business, who's not an entrepreneur.
Right.
The average person that is in a business is easier to deal with because they can recognize that fact. This guy has to do something for me that I can't. I don't have the equipment, the shop, the ability, whatever. And so I'll dedicate my time to my expertise and let somebody else. And so it's, there's a small percent. Majority of the people I've dealt with in my business life have really been great. So the majority of them have.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, to finish it off here, Roger, any tips or advice for anybody that is starting?
Keep doing what you are, and
well, to the guys that are just maybe starting out,
keep dreaming, and
and just trying to start out their business. Because I mean, you literally let me make mistakes. That's the best thing, is just
that's really important.
Just to say,
I'm
okay,
a great believer in that.
Yeah, make mistakes, and then also dream a little bit.
I've maybe related this to you. I had a young neighbor boy that worked for me when he was in high school. He was working by the hour, but I think and I left him do his thing, and I didn't realize till he went home, he was apparently trying to see how many plant stands he could weld in an hour. And it was bad. It was rough, and there was cold beads and so forth. So the next night when he came to work, I said, well, here's a grinder. You're going to grind all them down on your own time, re-weld them, and then the clock will start again. And I knew he was mad at me, but he never said a thing. Well, here, about 3 years ago, he was probably 18 at the time, and now he's 42 or 3. He did some work for me with some equipment, and we were sitting there visiting, and he brought it up. He says, a valuable lesson that you taught me, and I had a pretty good idea what he was going to say, but he said, I was mad at you because I had to work for hour and a half on my own time, and he said, but that was one of the most valuable lessons that I learned. And I said, well, that was the goal, for you to learn.
That's awesome. All right, Roger.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming in, and
I appreciate
taking
the opportunity.
Me out for lunch.
Hopefully we've helped someone in your audience to give them some self-confidence and know that they got a dream that they should follow it and not be afraid of making mistakes.
Right. Because I mean, it's been 15 years. It's been. I'm not where I want to be.
Oh, you could have been.
It's just one of those things. You it's the process, I think, of getting to a place.
Well, and any of us, and myself too, working for my uncle who was an electrician one summer. I mean, I worked for him like a stranger. I mean, we did it right the first time, and that was some valuable lessons, that I learned. And even for neighbors, that we had a neighbor that I worked for going to high school, and I was in the habit, when I get on a tractor, the first thing I'd always do is check the oil and the radiator and the belts before I ever started it. Unbeknown to me, he was watching from behind the scenes. And I had worked he had a brand new tractor and plow, and I was in hog heaven out there. and I suppose after fall harvest and the field work was done, we were talking. He said, something I really appreciated. And I said, what was that? He said, you didn't know I was watching, but he said, I was in the barn peeking through the window. You always check the oil in the radiator before you started the tractor up, whether I had just gotten off from it or whether it sat there for a day. So that's those things that we and they were great people to work for because of that confidence there again that he showed in me. And
right.
Okay,
well, thank you, Roger.
It's been pleasant. Like I say, I hope that it's beneficial to someone out there in your audience.
I think a lot will enjoy it and benefit from it, and that's the goal.
Okay.
And so thanks for taking me out to lunch on my late birthday.
Yeah, we always try and do this on his birthday, so
every year.
Try and catch up with time past. We've got intention of getting together through the year with our families, and we've all got two. We got now children or grandchildren, so we get pulled in a different direction sometimes. So
right.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Well, continued God's blessing and good luck in your business and your family.
Thank you, Roger. All right, guys. That is it here, you guys. Roger Kahler. I call him my mentor, my life business mentor. So I always talk about you, Roger, and everybody knows about you. You don't realize.
I hope most of it's good.
So, yeah.
Some of it.
All right, you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this this episode on the Hustle Cast. And until then, we will see you next time.